You are in an elevator. Two other people are in there with you. Nobody says a word. 10 seconds pass. It feels like a minute. You start looking at the floor numbers like they're the most interesting thing you've ever seen in your life. Why does that happen? Why does quiet, harmless silence make your skin crawl? You are not in danger. Nobody is threatening you. And yet some part of your brain is screaming that something is wrong. Here's the strange part. That feeling is not random. It's ancient. And once you understand where it came from, you will never sit in an awkward silence the same way again. Let's go back, way back. Before cities, before villages, before most of what we call civilization even existed, back then, humans lived in small groups, maybe 20 or 30 people. Everyone knew everyone. And in those groups, sound was not just noise. Sound was information. If people were talking, laughing, moving around, making normal group noise, that meant everything was fine. The group was together. Nobody was in trouble. Life was going on as usual. But if the noise suddenly stopped, that meant something. And it was rarely a good something. Maybe a predator had been spotted. Maybe someone had gone missing. Maybe there was a fight brewing, and everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what happened next. Silence, to your ancestors, was almost never neutral. It was a signal, and the signal usually meant pay attention, because something is about to change. So your brain built a rule, a very old, very simple rule. Quiet equals alert. That rule worked incredibly well for about 200,000 years. But here's the problem. Nobody updated the rule for elevators. Your brain does not know the difference between the group has gone silent because a predator is near, and the group has gone silent because nobody has anything to say right now. Both situations trigger the exact same alarm. So when you're standing in that elevator, or at a dinner table where the conversation just died, or on a phone call where the other person suddenly stops talking, your ancient alert system switches on. Heart rate ticks up, palms get a little sweaty, your brain starts scanning the room, even though there is nothing to scan for. That's not a personality flaw. That's not social anxiety being weird. That is a 200,000-year-old survival tool, still running, still doing its job, just aimed at the wrong target. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. It's not just about danger. Silence also used to mean something even scarier to early humans. Exclusion. Think about it this way. In a small group of 30 people, everyone depended on everyone else. You didn't hunt alone. You didn't defend yourself alone. You didn't raise children alone. Survival was a group project, which meant being part of the group was not optional. It was everything. Get kicked out of the group, and your odds of surviving dropped fast. So the brain developed a second alarm. Not just silence might mean danger, but silence might mean they're leaving me out. If you were talking to someone and they suddenly went quiet, or the group around you got quiet when you walked up, that could mean you were being excluded. Maybe you'd upset someone. Maybe there was a decision being made without you. Either way, it was worth worrying about, because exclusion could be a death sentence. So now you've got two alarms stacked on top of each other. Silence might mean danger. Silence might mean rejection. Both wired in deep, both firing off at once whenever things go quiet. That's why an awkward pause with a friend doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It can feel personal, like something is wrong between you two, even when nothing is. But here's the twist that changes everything. If silence used to be so dangerous, why do some people seem completely fine with it? Why can two old friends sit in a room together, say nothing for 10 minutes, and feel completely relaxed? This is where the story gets really specific. Turns out the alarm isn't actually about silence itself. It's about uncertainty. Your ancestors weren't afraid of quiet. They were afraid of not knowing what the quiet meant. If you're in a group you trust completely, silence doesn't trigger the alarm because your brain already has the answer. It knows nothing is wrong. It knows you're safe. It knows you belong. So the silence just feels like rest. But if you're with strangers or in a socially uncertain situation, like an elevator, a job interview, or a first date, your brain doesn't have that information yet. It doesn't know if the silence is safe or dangerous, so it defaults to the ancient setting. Assume alert. Watch for signs, which means the discomfort you feel isn't really about the silence at all. It's about not yet knowing where you stand with the people around you. That single idea explains a lot. Why silence with your best friend feels peaceful, but the exact same silence with a coworker you barely know feels unbearable. Same amount of quiet, completely different meaning to your brain. It also explains something else. Why bad first dates feel so exhausting. It's not that silence is happening more often. It's that every second of it forces your brain to keep scanning for information it doesn't have yet. But there's one more layer to this, and it might be the most uncomfortable one. Somewhere along the way, humans figured out something dark. If silence naturally feels like danger and rejection, then silence could be used on purpose. As a weapon. Think about the silent treatment. Someone you're close to stops talking to you after a fight. No yelling, no argument, just nothing. It's often more painful than shouting, and that makes no sense on the surface, because nothing is technically being done to you. No words, no actions, just quiet. Except your ancient alarm doesn't see it that way. Your brain reads that silence exactly the way it would have read exclusion from the group thousands of years ago. And back then, exclusion from the group really could end with you alone, unprotected, and in serious danger. So when someone goes quiet on you deliberately, it doesn't just feel like an argument. It can feel like a threat to your survival, even though logically, you know you'll be fine. That gap between what you know and what you feel is exactly the ancient alarm doing its job, just a few thousand years too late for the modern world. This same wiring shows up in front of a crowd too. Ever notice how a silent audience feels worse than a loud one? If you're speaking in public and people are laughing, nodding, reacting, your brain reads that as safety. The group is engaged. You belong up there. But if the room goes dead quiet and nobody reacts at all, that silence can feel like the whole room turning against you, even if they're just listening carefully. Your body doesn't know the difference between polite silence and hostile silence. It just knows the noise stopped, and stopped noise used to mean trouble. Now think about how this shows up today. Everywhere, all the time. Group chats where someone leaves you on read, meetings where you ask a question and nobody answers right away, a conversation where you crack a joke and get nothing back but a blank stare, a text that says delivered but never read. None of these things are dangerous. None of them threaten your survival, but your brain doesn't know that. It's still running code that was written for a world where the wrong kind of silence could get you killed or kicked out of the only group keeping you alive. So the next time silence hits and your chest tightens for no clear reason, you're not overreacting. You're running a system that used to be one of the smartest tools a human could have. It kept your ancestors close to the group. It kept them alert to danger. It kept them alive. It just never got the memo that elevators aren't lions and read receipts aren't rejection.